Good evening, people. Luke here from Spotlight on Spurs. We are going to continue the Eze meltdown. We are here for it. The drama has kicked off. It was going so slow, then it goes all crazy. Morgan Gibbs White, then it drops back down again and it all goes quiet. And Spurs are just that club where we just have to be engrossed in some sort of craziness that takes place. For those of you who have been living under a rock, Eze looks as though he's signing for Arsenal. Didn't even feature in the matchday squad today, whereas we were told that he couldn't sign for Spurs because Palace were insisting he started tonight. So very, very interesting. We've got one guest who will be joining us. We've decided he's a little bit like Spurs' transfer window. He's going to leave it just a little bit later than you probably should, but he will be joining us shortly. But joining us from the very start, we have Mr. Regular, Mr. Co-host himself, Chris. How are we doing, sir?
Not bad, mate. How are you? How's things?
Mate, there was some drama last night. There was some drama, but we will get into it, I'm sure. I'm all good. Thank you very much. Oh, my God. We've got our first viewer in the building, and he's an Arsenal fan, so we'll quickly come off of that, and we'll go straight to JJ. How are we doing, my friend?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, mate. I'm doing as well as I can right now with Tottenham.
Yeah. I mean, what a horrible time to bring you on, mate, because the last time you came on, we were gearing up for a Europa League final. We were dissecting how we were going to win the game, and obviously we did. But he also had the comedic value of me just cutting out and you guys having to play host yourselves. So let's hope that doesn't happen on this occasion. Now, I will come to him. Unfortunately, Sam Lowe is in the chat. He's been very, very quiet since we started up the channel. And then all of a sudden, they nick Eze off of us and he wants to have a chat. So big up, Sam, I guess. Yeah. Anyway, we may as well start. There. It's been numbers yesterday on YouTube for people watching was absolutely unbelievable. The meltdown that was taking place. Now, maybe it was all Arsenal fans in the Tottenham chats. There's a possibility of that, but everybody seemed to be breaking records on how many people were watching when the Eze news broke. Chris, what are your thoughts on the whole situation?
It's just, I would say you couldn't write it, but you probably could. It's just one of them things. Like any club could have come in and snapped him up, and it had to be Arsenal that just come in. If the deal was done, if we just paid the money, got it done last week, we wouldn't be in this situation. And I think that's the trouble with Tottenham is that everything gets pushed on and pushed on and pushed on. And then we've seen it time and time before in the past where people just come in and snatch the deals off us because we get them in, we get them close, we show them around the training ground, we show them around the stadium probably, we show them what we're trying to build. We waste all this time trying to get them in, and then it just doesn't go through because someone else comes in and offers them the money that they want and offers them what they need, and that's it. It's a done deal. So it'd be interesting. I think I've read that Arsenal have actually offered the same. It's the same terms as what we was going to get him for. So I don't know how it's all gone so quick. When, as you said at the start, I'm pretty sure it was because of him starting tonight. That was the reason why it's been delayed for Tottenham, and yet Arsenal come in and it's all done and dusted, and he doesn't even feature in. He's not even on the bench for him tonight. So it'd be interesting to when all the dust settles and it's officially confirmed, just to see what the actual, if there's any sort of concrete, not rumours obviously, but any facts that come out about what's actually happened here, because it'd be interesting to know if Tottenham took too long, if we dropped the ball, or did we do all that we can and we agree to all the terms and Arsenal just come in and just stole it from us and offered maybe 5 million more, 8 million more, offered him more wages. But I did see as well that he got dropped from I think he got released from Arsenal when he was 12 or 13. So I think he still has that tie to him. Probably is an Arsenal fan at heart as well. So can't blame a kid for signing for you. If it was me and Tottenham coming for me as a kid, I'd be signing up all day, regardless of who I'd done. That's your dream. So can't fault him for following his dream. But unfortunately for Spurs fans, we all thought we were getting a player that was going to change our season and It's all gone downhill.
It's all gone Pete tongue indeed. We will go into a couple of different permutations of the deal because there are several different contrasting rumours. There's been rumours that the deal was done way back from Arsenal, and essentially they kind of said we're going to put it on the back burner, and then when someone gets close, let us know. He is an Arsenal fan. He's actually said there was a bit of an interview where he kind of said when he was younger that they asked if he would want to sign for Spurs, and he kind of deflected the comment a little bit. But we'll go into a little bit of that just in a bit. But initially, JJ, what are your thoughts on the player? Obviously, you're a lot more from a tactical point of view and that sort of thing. Do you think he would have been a great player for Spurs or fitted in the system? Because there has been some fans that have said that potentially with Savinho Kudus being very like a dribbler player, that probably we need a bit more of a passer in there as opposed to Eze. I think that does a disservice to Eze. I think he's a top player. But what were your thoughts on the situation and all of that with Eze?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in pain like everyone else. He's a fantastic player. He's a player that I've followed for a very long time, and interestingly, and I know this, Tottenham have followed him for a very long time, and Tottenham have looked at him several times and never kind of gone for it. And then you end up in a situation where you're going to have to pay absolute top value for him, and we still can't get him over the line despite how long we've been trying to get him into the football club. So yeah, it's a painful one. He's definitely a football player that elevates us. Doesn't really matter in terms of the profile of players that you bring in. When you bring in someone of that level, someone of that quality, he was going to come into the football club, and with a manager like Frank, he was going to make the most out of him. He was going to valorise what Eze could do playing for this Tottenham team. He was going to deploy him in the way that was going to get the most out of him. I had absolute faith in that. And when you've at the end of the day, when you've just got a great deal of quality and you've got the right attitude, which Eze does as a footballer, he's not a prima donna. He's not out there thinking he's bigger than anyone else. He does his job, and he gets on with the game, and he's been brilliant for Palace. He would have come in and he would have elevated the team. He would have elevated the players around him. We'd have had loads of solutions. If people are worried about us not having a deep line playmaker or a so-called passer in the number 10, I wouldn't have worried about it at all. We would have adjusted, we'd have changed his tactics, we would have changed where he would have been receiving his passes, how he's driving through players in midfield, and who he's offloading to and how. So yeah, I would have had no worries whatsoever. We wanted him, he'd have been brilliant. And then when you add a player like that, and then the players who are out start to come back, you've got depth, you've got options, you've got different profiles. It's really, really disappointing, and it does feel, no matter which way you kind of cut it, whoever you're listening to, it doesn't really matter. There is probably truth in the fact that you could have made everything else go away. If you're Tottenham Hotspur, you could have made all of this a completely moot point by paying the money pre the lapse of his release clause, right? And it does feel like the Arsenal deal might be slightly better than the Tottenham one from what's being put out there. They offering slightly easier add-ons, and a higher package to the player, like just everything just that little bit better to sweeten it for the club and sweeten it for the player, not massively. So yeah, from that perspective, everybody except for Tottenham comes out better. But until Kai Havertz, it felt to me anyway, until Kai Havertz got injured, Arsenal would have wanted the player. They definitely wanted the player. They looked at him, but they were kind of in a situation where it's like, well, with Ranieri signing his contract, we can't really justify, hitting out 68 million on Eze. It would have been one of those unfortunate things for them and brilliant things for us. We get the player because they're just not, it didn't make sense for them to come in at that time, 20, 30 million above what they wanted. So if we'd have paid it, we didn't. We negotiated, we waited, the door opened, Arsenal came in and they were ruthless. And yeah, I've got that horrible feeling, that really Spurs feeling about winning goals by Eze, about what he's going to do to them, and how he's going to improve them, and all of those bad things are going on in my mind. So yeah, it's not a good one right now.
That's how you know you're a Spurs fan, because you like we've not even seen him in the shirt yet, and all the fan base is already going, he's going to score the winner against us. He's going to go and get the 10, 15 goals or assists that's going to push them on to the title. He's the one that's going to change their draws against big teams into the wins. That's going to get them. But he's not even signed yet. But that is typical Spurs. But we're all feeling it. We all feel exactly the same. We'll just quickly come to the chat, and then we will go through and just have a little chat, because, as I said, with regards to this deal, there's been some conflicting stuff that's come out, as there always is. There has been some rumours that Arsenal basically matched Spurs' deal. I've also seen, I think, more recent reports are, as you said, that they've actually gone just a little bit. I think they've paid a little bit more up front. Their percentages are a little bit better. You've also got some theories that this was all planned way back in July when Arsenal first had their meeting, and it was all kind of, you'll sign for us, but we'll see. But so we'll go to the chat, have make some say hello to the chat, and then we'll come back and have a little discussion around that. So we've got What's the Point FC. Levy is a genius. He's going to push the hardcore fans out of the stadium within 10 years, and then we'll carry on with transfer windows and overpriced season tickets. Again, it's another theory that people are saying, that it's almost an idea that we don't have season ticket holders at football clubs in America. Mainly, they don't have that, and it's very much people come and spend an absolute fortune every time they attend, which isn't every single week. Orstein obviously came out. He's made his own little video of the whole kind of saga of what happened around Spurs. Saying that just didn't foresee Havertz making Arsenal come back in. So, yeah, essentially what you said, JJ. So big up to you guys. Nolan, what's up, my man? How we doing? Exactly the same sort of thing. Everybody seems to be in the opinion that Levy's just taking this little bit too long. Big up, Ben. How we doing, sir? Where do we go from here? Rumours doing the rounds. Is Nico Paz? If we sign that poor man's mad as I'm done. I'm not sure about that, mate. He's a young player that's a very, very good ceiling. He's got a much better base than what we're currently buying players at, but it is another young player, so I get what you're saying. Peter, big up, mate. How we doing? 6:45 in Melbourne. I hope you're doing well, sir. And then, do Arsenal fans like Spurs? This is quite an interesting one, because when you look at their best team, obviously left wing was very much the kind of place that Arsenal fans are saying they need a player, Odegaard being their captain. So Eze's probably going to play on the left-hand side a little bit more than what he would for Spurs. So that's an interesting one. I think for Palace, they kind of play a little bit of a different sort of system. They're kind of more, it's 2 10s as opposed to a left winger and a right winger. But be interesting to see how he does there. But going back to the whole sort of deal, I have put it in the chat. Just to see where people's feelings are around Levy and this sort of deal. So is it all on Levy? And at the moment, 77% of people think that this is solely down to Levy. As I said, there's been a few different rumours that have been circulating. It does seem that Spurs have dragged their feet. However, the one thing I will say, and it seems to be a lot of uproar about, is that Arsenal have come in and done the deal within a few hours. I think what's being forgotten about here is that Palace are selling a product, and all that needs to happen is once someone, no matter how long these negotiations take, once Palace receive a fee that they're happy with, anyone can then match that, and they don't have to go through the weeks of negotiating. Now, whether it should take weeks is one question. That's not part of this. What I'm saying is the uproar that has come has been, well, Arsenal have got it over the line in 2 hours, and it's like, yeah, because Spurs have done all the legwork for the last few weeks. The fee's been agreed, and then Arsenal have just gone, well, what was the fee? And we will pay that as well. So I think that's one of the reasons why Arsenal have been so quick. But Chris, who do you blame for this deal not getting over the line? Is it nothing to do with Spurs and solely Eze was always going to prefer to go to Arsenal? If we would have, as JJ said, if we'd have done this quicker, and Arsenal seemed to be completely out of the race until Havertz's injury, if we would have just got the deal done, would he have ended up coming? Who's to blame for this, or is it shared across multiple different?
Yeah, it depends how you look at it, I think. Obviously, Spurs could have got it done quicker. As JJ mentioned, there was a release clause in there last week. I believe it ran out on Friday. So all you do on the Monday, Tuesday, you need Eze, you go and get him, you pay the release clause, it's done. And we get him within a day or two, and it's all done and dusted. What seems to have happened is we've let that lapse, intentionally or not. Obviously, it's arguable. And I reckon Spurs have now turned around and probably gone, well, his release clause was there. It's not there now. So let's try and get to a figure that everyone's happy with. And we've done it. Obviously, Havertz has got injured. And Arsenal just stepped in and gone, right, we'll take him now. We want him now. We obviously must have inquired about him at the start of the window or earlier on in the season, pre-season. Again, it's many factors. It's quick and easy to blame Levy for the delay in negotiations. I don't think Eze would have rejected Spurs if Arsenal never come in, because I think he was always wanting to move to the next level. He wanted to go and play the Champions League football and everything else. So I think he wanted to step up.
Yep.
So I reckon there's probably his agents obviously said to him like, look, Arsenal was inquiring. That's gone dead now. Spurs are the only ones that are in for you. He probably said, yeah, I'll go Spurs. I like the way they're set up. I've got the Champions League football and all that stuff that comes with it, the stadium and the training ground and everything else. He wants the new challenge. But then, again, if you're a boyhood Arsenal fan and Arsenal end up coming in for your last minute, you're always going to want to listen to what they're saying, and more than likely that's going to turn your head. But you can't blame him for that. So for me, you've got to blame Levy if he's the one in charge in negotiations, because just again, I think his release clause was 67 million.
68, I think it was. I think it was 20 million. 20 million one season, then the next, and then it was 8 million in add-ons. So 68 in total, I think was.
And I think we got accepted like 55 plus 5 add-on. So we're talking about £8 million here. I mean, the stadium apparently makes £2 million every home game. So for 4 home games, that's what we've missed out on. That's what stopped us from getting Eze. That's how I see it. And if that is the case, if we've just tried to get him for 60 rather than 68, and we're just trying to cut ourselves 8 million, just pay the money, go and get the geezer. It's not like we're taking a risk on him. You know what he can do. He's proven in the Premier League. He's top quality, he fits straight into the team. For the sake of £8 million, we've done it plenty of times. It's just typical Spurs, it seems like.
Yeah. Big up, Ash. Thanks very much for coming on, sir. We are doing the Eze meltdown. We're discussing who's to blame. So we'll quickly run to JJ, then we'll come over to you for your opinion on who to blame, my friend. Thank you for coming on.
Big up.
JJ, who is to blame for this typical Spurs situation?
I mean, I blame Mr. Marinakis, right? It's got to be. Surely. We've got to run all our transfers through him. He's clearly turned it down and said, look, you're not having it. No, I think it does feel like, and I'm definitely not in the camp where I'm always like, just pay the money. I'm not on that side of things. So I'm not so, not so detrimental on the club on that kind of stuff. But in this instance, there's a few bits. Obviously, it looks like we missed out when we had a chance to get it for the release clause. It does feel like the eventual transfer fee, because it became a bidding war for Arsenal. So they've had to come in and match and improve the terms. So it's probably hitting the number that Arsenal wanted, the Palace wanted for the release clause anyway. Maybe not with as much up front. I've heard numbers as high as 40 million being the upfront fee as part of the release clause, which is it's a large amount. And then the other bit of it is like people saying, well, it's a done deal. Like, even if we'd have done it 3 weeks ago, Arsenal would have come in and gazumped us. The only thing I would say about that is, fine, if we were going to lose out on it, whichever way you cut it, do it 3 weeks ago, because we then got 3 more weeks to go at targets and to do other business and to get our ducks in a row and try and sort ourselves out and get in a good position. And there might be other players in this intervening time that have been moving around that we could have been, part of or whatever. So yeah, it's disappointing from that. I think the transfer team definitely got to carry some of this, but the agents were in there You know, the other football club was in there. There's definitely a feeling that there was probably a bit of stalling from Parish and from Palace at the you know, at the end of this, when someone from base has said, just give us a sec. Havertz went down this morning or whenever it was. Give us a sec. We'll be on the phone in a couple of hours. You know, that people are talking to each other all the time. People are always on the phone. They're always in each other's ear. And at the end of the day, we had an opportunity to seal it when no one else was there at the table. We didn't do it, and we end up paying the price. So yeah, bit of blame shared all over the place.
Yeah, I completely agree. A lot of people are saying that this is Levy's history coming back to bite him, but if you've been in the game 25 years, you're going to have made some enemies. Unfortunately, it's kind of part of what you do in the footballing world, I guess. Ash, what are your thoughts on Eze, on the whole deal? Who's to blame? Yeah, just what are your thoughts, my man? Thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. Big up to the panel and the chat. Straightforward, to be fair. It was the negotiations, in my opinion. That's where it broke down. Because it has come out. I don't know if you guys have read the Romanos, whether you believe them or not, but they're meant to be credible journalists that speak to the agents, that it was done and pushed through a lot quicker by Arsenal because they had it set up from the 10th of August, and obviously they pulled out because they decided to focus on other targets. They didn't think that that position was priority, so they actually pulled out of it, and we had a window of opportunity. Now, my issue, and has been for a long time, is Spurs do take long to move onto targets. Generally, we use it into the back end of August or the back end of the window or the middle window to become more aggressive in the transfer window, because that's when opportunities do pop up. So I think a lot of frustration from a lot of fans are that Spurs don't always plan the best. And when Maddison broke down with the injury, I think it was the speed of the movement of getting that deal done which is the issue at hand at the moment. Knowing, the history of Eze, knowing that his first love was Arsenal, he got rejected from them as a youngster. He played in their academy. Knowing that, any sniff of Arsenal changing their mind, because we knew what happened with Morgan Gibbs-White. That was the problem. That was the issue. Everyone was saying after the Morgan Gibbs-White issue, hopefully we would take home some lessons from that. We would have learned that you have to get things done, because in football and in business, things change really fast. And if we are going to be an opportunist type of club, and we're not going to do plan, and we're not going to have plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, and we aren't going to take so long before we move on from Morgan Gibbs-White, then surely when we do have the opportunity of a window, we do agree a fee, let's not diddle-daddle on bonuses and add-ons. Let's be respectful, because the environment of the actual market and knowing the actual seller has the leverage and not us, we should respect that selling club and meet the actual agreed to the actual fees that we have. If we do, as you just said, if we've had previous, like we've burnt bridges or we've got bad love because we've been around the block for a long time, respectfully. So in my opinion, I think the speed of the deal was an issue. I think Spurs historically, as I said before, moving too late, I think that's an issue, because we've seen that down numerous amount of windows where we've waited to the end, the back end, to get those, opportunistic type of deals. And sometimes when you do that, you get cut short. You get it's a risky strategy within itself. So that's what I take stock with. And also, I think there's a time when you should know when to walk away. So I think there was a time when Spurs might have seen, maybe, because we're not privy to all the information, they might have known that, okay, Sunday, the injury happened to Kai Havertz, and that's completely changed things. And at that point, they could have explained and been a bit clear to the Spurs fans, we feel like this deal can't be done. Let's walk away and move on to our next target. Fans would have been uproar, yes, rightly so. But at least the club would have been out there. It's all out in the open. We need to move on. We need to move on to other targets. So I also take issue with that, where they kind of hanged on. They kept pushing. And now we're in a situation where we're in, and we've lost to, not, if it was Bayern Munich, we would still be pissed. But the fact that it was Arsenal, I don't know about you guys, but I have a lot, like, 70 to 80% of my friends are Arsenal. So I've literally just come back from ball and I've been getting it in the neck. And I'm pretty sure there's people that go to work and you have to communicate with lots of Arsenal fans, etc. That aside, for me, it's more like I don't really like the embarrassment, first of all, because we've done well to move away from that kind of Spursy kind of mode. Even though like MGW wasn't our fault, people kind of saying, "Oh, you kind of bottled it," but they didn't really get onto us for it, like rival fans. And really, if football is a vacuum, because I know what a lot of people are thinking, you know, you can't care what other people think, and I hear that. You should just focus on your club, and that's what Andrew was trying to say. He was trying to say, let's just focus on us. I do get that, but in a world when we're trying to catch up to rivals and we're trying to separate ourselves from, you know, playing rivals like your Villas, your Newcastles, they're hamstrung by FFP, PSR, etc. So if they had the money, they would be moving a lot more aggressively, but they don't have the freedom that we do, and we do have the money. And for me, if it was like a 6 million like fee that you need to pay, and we make that on the match day, do you understand? For me, that is a no-brainer. You just look, go in, offer, and even if Levy, for me, if he's got a hostile environment and Langer's not getting the job done, please send Vinay in. Send a different, because for me, selling is human. You know, when you do that interaction, you need to go into a place where people feel respected and loved, and maybe Parish does the deal a bit better, because from what I understand, Eze's pulled out of the European tie. So obviously I'm behind it now because I've come back from football.
Yeah, he wasn't even in the squad. He called up this morning, Glasner, and said he was ill.
So for me, that just tells me you've clearly pissed this chairman off and he's strung us up, because that could have been done by the charity show. That should have been done. That means wherever you were haggling on your bonuses, because he even compared it to Liverpool. He said, I like dealing with Liverpool because it was nice and easy and free. And I know they're in talks with Grahy, but you can just tell the difference between that negotiation and this negotiation. And I go back, and I know people don't like it, but to the Luis Diaz situation where his dad was in the actual stadium, in the training facilities, talking to our staff, talking to the people. We had it done, and it was few agent fees that we were stalling, we were haggling on, and it's the same situation that keeps repeating itself, but in different players and different forms. So if I keep hearing the same patterns and the same things, then clearly it's an issue with the negotiation team. And if that happens to be Levy, if he's a part of it, I'm sorry, the blame definitely falls on him or the people he's employing to do the negotiations, in my opinion. And the funny thing is, I always see this when we were in talks with Porro. Do you remember when we were talking with Porro at the start of January? It goes back further, but Porro is more recent. So I'm going to bring up Porro as an example. That window went from the start of January negotiating, and it took all the way to the end of the window. And I was told that Levy is going to take a step back because we've got Fabio Paratici. Then when Scott Munn came in, I was told Levy's going to take a step back because Scott Munn's the new head of football. Then I got told this season, you know, be positive, be calm, because we've reshuffled. We've got Charrington, who's now on the board, and we've also got Vinay, who's also. So now we've got different people, and Levy's allowed to do what he does best, which is the commercial deals and the business side. So now I'm hearing Levy was in the, he was in talks, and he left fuming. He was angry, whatever. And I'm like, well, if I'm not blaming Langer or Lange, whatever you want to call it, the fault has to come at Levy, in my opinion. And even if I don't blame Levy, I still have to give him some blame because he hired Langer, because Langer's been incompetent and not getting Morgan Gibbs White done, and even this one for Eze. Do you know what I mean? There's other points. I don't want to bore, but this is me very calm. When I found out, I was fuming. I was absolutely seething. I was so embarrassed. My head was so hot. And the reason why I was so angry wasn't because I liked this player for over 3 years, been following him since QPR, watched his backstory, like fully invested in the player for, oh my goodness, this is actually happening. It's the fact that you've got a proven player that is more senior, but can replace someone like Son, who can play obviously the 10 role, but can drift in the left pocket if need be. And I felt like his personality could cover. And sometimes you know, when you get a top signing, it's not just about, you know, appeasing the fans. It's about changing the culture, because the actual
100%.
players see a top player coming in and they get excited, like, oh my days, I'm gonna get to play with Eze. He's more of a senior player. And the season before, we had recruited a lot of young players. And for me, the players we're linked with, no disrespect to them, they've done well in 1 season or 6 months or 8 months. Whereas Eze has done it not just this season, not just the season before last, but the season before last that as well. So you've got a proven player that can walk in, doesn't have to know the culture, doesn't have to acclimatize to the speed of the Premier League or the aggressive. And for me, the last point I'll make is, and we'll come into Savinho, I'm pretty sure. The reason why I thought the two have to work hand in hand is because what Eze gave me was the security of a goal threat, someone that's in that position, in that pocket, that can create and also has an actual goal threat in that place, because we are lacking goals, in my opinion. So a player that offers goals and creativity would supplement someone like Savinho, because in the Premier League, he hasn't put the goal tally numbers up. So to me, that's the reason why my head was so rattled, plus other things I won't go into.
I completely agree. And one thing that I'll say, and I've been saying this about Eze and Savinho to an extent as well, is that we have got a very good right winger now. Kudus has been superb for us. He's been a player that we haven't seen for a long time, a player that can beat fullbacks, that makes fullbacks think what they've got to do, whereas I think we've been very easy to play against as the wingers. Brennan Johnson's obviously been a pain in the backside at the back post, knowing that he's probably going to cause you problems there. But Kudus makes you think about things. And I think when you sign a player like Eze, when you sign a player like Savinho, you free him up a bit, because right now we're going to talk about Man City in a little while. If you're Manchester City, for me, I'm saying just mark him and stop the ball getting to him, and he's the creative outlet. If you've all of a sudden have an Eze and a Savinho, you then make the Kudus signing even better, because you're freeing him up, because the people can't just mark him out of the game. And I feel like that's exactly what happened when we played Bayern. They just kind of doubled up on him, harassed him, and then after 60, 70 minutes, energy started sapping everything else. Whereas, as I say, if you've got other good players, then it means that defenders have to think. You can't come up with a game plan of just solely mark this man and that's it. So I think that he would have made such a big difference in so many different ways. Exactly what you just said, Ash, in terms of Romero signing his contract will lift players, that will lift the club. And then all of a sudden, we have this huge impact at this club again, where everybody's sitting around going, what's going on? Like, what we won the European trophy to get away from this. And Ash, exactly what you said in terms of rival fans. The first comment on the stream was mine and Chris's friend away from YouTube, who's an Arsenal fan who hasn't commented in this stream for weeks. He was the first one to come in. So I know exactly what you're feeling. I had loads of Arsenal friends. I've deleted them all from my life over the last 24 hours. So I'm kind of just living in the Spurs moment at this moment in time. Massive thank you, Andrew Kiddle. Big up, my friend. Thank you very much. I believe you meant to say you've commented on X a few times. Love the content, bro. Come on, you Spurs. Thank you very, very much. That is massively appreciated. Second donation, obviously. Biggest donation on the channel. Thank you very, very much, sir. There's so many things to kind of dissect in this deal, and I don't think we're ever going to really know the whole ins and outs of everything. But one thing both, I think JJ and Ash both kind of touched on, is that our method seems to be we leave it late and then we can pick up a few bargains, or we get a reduction on fee, right? That seems to be the ethos. It's what's been going on year upon year, but that brings with it its own problems, right? In terms of when Morgan Gibbs-White deal fell through, you got so long to be able to get something sorted. I mean, we still haven't, but you have got so long to get something sorted. But also, you have things like Palace turning around and going, I need a replacement. I ain't going to be able to get anyone in. I need more money now to make sure that I get that player over the line. So you might be in a situation where, let's say, for instance, Liverpool held off and didn't spend big. They might be now in a predicament where they could go, Isaac's now ready. We didn't know this was going to happen a few weeks ago, so that's a great opportunity there to go. However, if you do it continually all of the time, you're going to miss out on just as much as what you're going to get a bargain on. For me, it's going to swing in roundabouts. You're going to get some deals where Van der Vaart at 8 million. If you'd have said that during that summer, everyone would have gone, he's going to cost more than that. He won't come Spurs. All of a sudden, you get him over the line because it's a last minute kind of grab. But then you're also going to miss out on players, and then you're going to leave yourself in a situation. And I feel like with Spurs, there is no planning. There's never been a plan. The Morgan Gibbs White situation, if there was a real plan about that, then there would have been another name linked instantly, and we probably would have had someone over the line. So I feel like we move so slow, and there's never ever really a plan.
Just to add to that, though, just to go back on that point, and people in the comments, respectfully, big up to the people in the comments, the players that we are linked with. The fact that, you know, people are saying, "Oh, forget about this Premier League proven thing," you know, my caveat to that is there's no given that when you recruit outside of the league and you try to plot them in the team, it's gonna work, especially if they already had one standout season or they're of an age where they're quite young and they're inexperienced. Do you know what I mean? Because what we're trying to do is buy youth that are experienced compared to last season where we're just buying just youth. Do you understand? And so when you've got a player that's quite young and he's putting up some numbers, he's quite decent, but then you're putting him into a new league, it's another unknown for me. And that player is going to have to acclimatize, and he may need some coaching. Do you know what I mean? And so then when you pay the big bucks for them as well, and they don't perform, that's when you get a divide from fans, and fans will start getting onto the new player. See, look how much he costs. You're seeing it with like players like Brennan Johnson, Solanke. Do you know what I'm saying? And they've been in the Premier League, but they've had one standout season. Brennan Johnson had with Nottingham Forest in the Premier League. One standout season Solanke had with Bournemouth, and then Richarlison, he's obviously had the one standout season with Everton. You could argue maybe Watford, but I would say maybe one standout season with Everton. But look how they've tried to struggle to acclimatize. Do you know what I mean? And they're not even that young. Well, Johnson is, but the other two aren't. So it's like you said, it's such a gamble when you do leave things late, and you're having to go to these players now that are left on the market because are we going to spend or overspend and bring in the right quality that we need to get us to the next edge, to the level where we want to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I completely agree. And JJ, in terms of what Ash just said, in terms of the unknowns, this Prem proven, I've actually seen it quite a lot in Spurs community over the last probably like 24, 48 hours, really, in terms of Prem proven's not really a thing. Let's stop going down that route. But for me, it really is. I'm not saying that should be your only way you look at players, because I've always said you've got an English tax, then you've got a Prem tax. So if you've got an English Premier League player, they're going to sell for a huge amount of money compared to someone who's not in the English league, who's maybe not English, just because of the homegrown issue and everything else. But for me, it is a factor in when you're trying to sign a player, because there are so many players that have come over. And let's not talk about, because when people talk about like giving examples, they always go to the extreme. So they'll go like David Silva, for instance. Oh, well, he was only small, but look at him. And it's like, yeah, for every David Silva, you're going to have more Brian Hills. Like that is the way that it sort of works. We're not talking about the elite of the elite. Do you think that being a Prem proven player counts as something and probably increases the value a little bit, especially when you're buying inside of the Premier League?
Yeah, I definitely do. I think it's a huge factor, and it's something that shouldn't really be underestimated. You can definitely, if you think about it, you can definitely find value by going outside, right? So you can find cheaper players, you can find better value. You could effectively, if all other things were equal, you could have two exactly the same players, and you'd be able to find one of them a bit cheaper if you went overseas and you went and found it over there, right? There's a bigger pool to play in for a start. There's 5 top leagues, but 100%, and Ash has just referenced it there, you minimize the variables when you bring someone in that has done it in the exact league, in the culture, in the place, against the teams, at the pace, with the technicality, all of the things that make such a difference on the football pitch. All of those things get minimized by bringing somebody that you've seen has done it and has got potential and can grow. It doesn't mean it's always going to work. So it doesn't mean that Prem proven means it's a lock, but you're reducing the variables. And the other thing that I would encourage people to think about is footballers happen to be human beings as well. And so you also minimise some of the off the field stuff. Now, it doesn't mean if you're moving from Newcastle down to Southampton, you're not moving house and you're not uprooting your family and your kids aren't going to a different school. But there is something to be said for culture and changes and language and all of those things that come, and the baggage that comes with being somebody that's gone from another country and another league into the Prem. So yeah, in terms of adding all of those things up, I do think it's really, really important. Prem proven really does matter. And again, it's not a guarantee, but it's about minimizing the amount of things that you have to worry about and you have to think about, giving yourself the best possible opportunity. And it felt like this year we were doing a bit of that. We were doing the Prem proven, or we were doing, and if you look at Palhinha, he is Prem proven. It's just that we got him from somewhere else and he wasn't having a good time. So it felt like we were doing that older age profile, more experience, proven in the Premier League. It felt like we were moving in that direction. We haven't been able to get two very key deals over the line. And just to quickly say, unfortunately, Luke, I don't agree with you in the no planning thing. I think we got plans and, all of that kind of stuff. It's a big football club, but you end up, it's a tightrope. If you don't get these over the line, when you get an injury to your number 10 and now you've got no number 10 and that's a key position, you will end up overpaying because you're panicking. And so for every million, every 5, every bonus payment and every bit that we thought we were just about to get a really good deal, 55 plus 5 for Eze, and we didn't get it over the line. Now we're running and we're going to put 50 million on Dibbling. No idea. He's a young boy. We're going to put 50, 60 on Paz. No idea whether he can make that step, and he's a young boy as well. All of these things, you might win every now and again a couple of million here, but this was a priority position. So that's why I feel it's slightly different to the, just every single time being the pay the money. This one felt like it needed to be done.
Yeah, and you're right that you can't have a specific player or style or version of that you're looking at all of the time. That doesn't work. So for instance, you're not going to have a transfer plan where every single player is Prem proven, because first of all, they cost so much money that you only end up buying 1 or 2, because you can't go and sign 3, 4 every single window because everyone is so expensive. So and it works the other way. You can't also go and, how many transfer windows the clubs, and we're talking top clubs here, go out and only sign players that are not played in the Premier League. Like United have gone and got 2 forwards, both of them play in the Premier League. Like they've spent 60, 70 million on each of them. So I definitely feel like it's a factor. It shouldn't be, if he's not Prem proven, I don't want him. But at the same time, it should also be a case of that, as you said, there is so many different facets that go into a transfer, and all you're trying to do is minimise that risk, essentially, of laying out that sort of money. So the Eze thing is very, very. How many of the top clubs would be in this sort of situation? Like we talk about the very, very elite teams. You mentioned Bayern Munich earlier.
It comes down to mentality of the club, and the stats starts with me, because when you talk about those other clubs, they're really ruthless in terms of, if a player doesn't do well within a year or two, they're getting rid. They're chopping that player. And then also when they're trying to bring in players, they're of the mindset that that player, they've got to hit the ground running. And I think with Spurs, we've got a slightly different culture in terms of even as a fan base. Like lots of fans will say about Eze, well, if he doesn't want to play for us, then I don't really want him here. Do you know what I mean? We want players that want to pay for the badge, which is fair enough. But I remember like your Darren Bents, I remember your David Bentleys. Do you know what I mean? And I think other clubs have a similar mindset. Like loads of professional players don't support the clubs they actually play for. And so the mentality is, can we get the best player for this position? And if it doesn't work out in season 2, we're cutting. Do you know what I mean? And I think with Spurs at the moment, I feel like the fan base, I don't know if it's a thing where it's how we cope with not getting that player through, because I felt like with Eze in particular, loads of fans were behind it. And then they found out they knew he was an Arsenal fan. It wasn't a problem at the time. It's only when he's rejected us, it's now become an issue. Do you see what I'm trying to say?
It's a coping mechanism, mate. 100%. That's a coping mechanism. Like we do it with signings. There'll be like a player that no one's ever heard of, and we'll be linked with them, and then they'll be going, "This player, honestly, look, he is unbelievable." You're like, you wouldn't have even backed him last week. Like you wouldn't have even known who he was, and now all of a sudden he's the answer. So I think that's a coping mechanism. I've been doing it to myself. I've been doing it to myself, and I know it. I'm sitting there going, he's an absolute top player, and I think if you asked, I'd probably go as far as saying if you asked 60-70% of the fan base, they would have said at the start of the window, he's the guy, because you've both mentioned it earlier. We have tracked this guy for so long, and we're not talking about he's just been on the radar. There were strong rumours he was through the door last year. There was real strong rumours that he was the guy we was going for last year. So this isn't one that's kind of come out of the blue. We've been tracking him on and on, and I completely agree as well. I think people get confused, and we're fans, so we sleep. Everything is Spurs, and we think every player should be like that. Most footballers don't have a club anymore. They have a club that they supported when they were young, but they don't really have a club. Like, as you said, Darren Bent is not sitting there fuming while he's playing for Tottenham that Arsenal have lost the game or anything like that. Maybe when he finishes his career, you kind of go back and a little bit more and you become a bit more of a fan. But it shouldn't be the be all and end all, because like I'm sure there are plenty of Spurs players that have played for Spurs that have been Spurs fans and they're not very good. So what does it matter? You'd only be signing your clubs that support your club.
Alex Scott's a Spurs fan, though. Alex Scott's a Spurs fan.
Would you guys be happy with him? Well, that was the next kind of thing that I wanted to go on to, because I felt, and you can obviously come in if you don't agree with this. I always felt Morgan Gibbs-White had quite a particular set of, taken here about a very particular set of skills. But I didn't think there was that many that matched up to him in terms of what he could bring. Now, I wasn't saying that he was the best one or the best player, but for instance, Eze is definitely for me is a better 10. However, I think Morgan Gibbs-White would probably fit into a Frank system in the 8 in a better situation than an Eze would. So I thought he had so many different qualities. He was young, Prem proven, he'd been captain, he played for England. There were so many different things. I also think he's got a bit of tenacity about him as well. So when it was like, oh, well, he's not hit, we've not got him as an option anymore, the only player that I looked at that I thought kind of covers some of that is Paqueta. I think Paqueta would be a great signing for Spurs. But outside of that, I couldn't really make up my mind who I felt would be kind of a like-for-like replacement of him as a target. Now Eze is off the table. I'm looking around at some of the options that are being linked, and granted, this is only what's being linked, but there is no players that are anywhere near this guy's level. Now, some of them, I think, have the potential to get there, but how we can't sit there and go back to the whole last year where we're buying a player because in 2, 3, 4 years, he's going to be top level. So who are the alternatives to Eze? Chris, I'll come to you because we haven't heard from you for a sec. Who are you sitting there going, we'll have to go and get him then? Because surely, I'm sure we're all in agreement here. Spurs need to do something. We can't.
Oh yeah, we have to sign someone. Definitely, there has to be a 10 brought in because we don't have one. Who's
the alternative? Who is yours? Who are the one where you're going? If he comes in, yeah, I think not. Or are you just hoping that Spurs can pull one out of the hat?
This is the thing. I mean, you go back to the Prem proven. If you're buying a Prem player that's been in there for 2-3 seasons, who is proven that can play in the Premier League, when you're going to buy these players, you're also weakening the team in your league because then they're losing out on one of their key players. And that's why when someone says, I think it was when someone said, oh, Harry Kane ain't worth 100 million, he's got 1 year left in his contract. I said, no, but to Tottenham, he's worth that money. And all these players to that team, again, Bournemouth, I think Solanke was 55 million. He might not be a 55 million pound player, but to Bournemouth, it was, this is the price we want. This is what we feel he's valued for. And that's what we want. You either pay it or you don't get him. And that's what it is. So if we do look outside the Premier League to the players that we're being linked with, obviously, I think Savinho's not, if we do sign him, it won't be before the weekend because City won't want him to start against them. So if that happens, that'll be early next week for me. And I've seen that we're apparently going to throw a bit more money at that and give them what they want. And I think they wanted 67 million or whatever, 69 million, whatever it was.
There's been an update that's come out just now, and it's Fabrizio Romano said Tottenham had new contacts over a deal for Savinho today. Someone in City's hierarchy is pushing to keep the player. Spurs are pushing to sign him, insisting they want to do a deal. Spurs believe he will be a perfect sign-in. Thomas Frank is in love with the player. I'm not sure how he knows they're in love with him, but he's in love with him and really wants him. The player is keen on the move for sure.
If I was Savinho, I would not be signing for Spurs, because that comment is just strange, isn't it? Like, the manager is in love with me. I'm like, nope, I don't want to go there. No, thank you. I mean, Morgan Rogers has obviously been linked with us, but I think we get priced out of a move. Again, I think Villa turn around and say we want £100 million for him because that's what he's worth to us. But other than that, it's Xavi Simons, I think, has declared that he wants to go to Chelsea. He wants that deal to be done. Again, it's hard to try and find someone that is on the sort of, maybe not on the same level as Eze, but as close as you can get to turn around and say, if we didn't sign Eze, I'd be happy, because I think Eze would have been the perfect player for us. And I think we are going to sign someone out of the Premier League for 50 or 60 million pound. And if you're signing a 19, 20-year-old who's going to play in the 10, he has to start, because we haven't got that player. So whoever we're signing for the position is going to be our regular starter. I just think we're going to end up with someone that's not Premier League proven, someone that we're going to take a gamble on. It might be within the last couple of days of the season, because I think Papsar had a good game against PSG in that role. Bergvall arguably could probably fill in there and play that role. But other than that, there's not many players we've got in the squad that would be able to go in there and probably do a high-level job for us.
Sar's done well, but I think Sar has been, and we'll go into tactics in a short while, but I think Sar's been very good in that role, but I think it's a set of circumstances that means he flourishes in that role. He's certainly not someone who's, if you've got someone
he's
who's
not going to hold that position down.
But yeah.
So I think for me, the only one in the squad now that could probably play that way, if we're going to play that way against, would use that formation against C, which I very much doubt, would be Bergvall for me. But the only player that I could probably, it'd be Morgan Rogers. If we sign Morgan Rogers, I think the Spurs fans sort of say, well, you still messed up on the Eze deal, but you have brought in someone who's good. And as you say, he's also got the ceiling to keep getting better and better, because he is a good player. He does do a lot. He scores goals. He sets up goals. It's what you want in that position. So that's the only one, really. Otherwise, I think we just sign someone out of the Premier League. We take a gamble on someone, and it'll be someone under the age of 21, I imagine, because there's no one else really that we're going to come in for. And there's going to be a lot of pressure put on them, and it won't be fair, and it's going to be a tough season.
Yeah, I actually agree. JJ, who are the alternatives? I can't think of many that would really, we're not talking about, as I say, they don't have to be an Eze type, but Spurs fans are going to have to be. I don't want it to be a case of we sign someone like Diblin. I think is a great example where we sign Diblin. The Spurs fans are going to be absolutely raging with that, and that's nothing to do with the player. It's nothing to do with his quality or what he can become, but I just think that that's going to sit so badly with the fan base, and that could have impacts on the player himself. Who do you think the alternatives are, or do you have a player that you would want to be the alternative?
I mean, there's always going to be options available to you. It depends how much time we've got left to actually get something over the line. I really like, although I've got no idea about his contract situation, I really like Hayden Hackney. He's a player, a lot of talk about, a lot of excitement about, and he's now moving into that period. I think he's like somewhere around 23 years old, maybe now. He's moving into that bracket where he's not obviously Prem, he's not Prem proven, but he's moving into that bracket where if he is going to make the step up, he's Eze before he goes to Palace, right? He's not a number 10 anyway. Hayden Hackney's more Morgan Gibbs White, like 8/6/8/ can score goals. But yeah, I really like the look of him. From what I've seen, he looks like a brilliant player. So if you are going to go younger and you're going to try and tempt somebody, you're going to try and get somebody out, I quite like him. I like Ash mentioned Alex Scott is a great player as well. But again, you're erring on the side of youth. And this might just be Tottenham kind of shaking hands with the fact that, well, we try to go for the 60, 70 million, and unless there's a release clause in there, if anybody else is interested, then they just come and take them off us in the way that we've taken players off other clubs. So that might be the reality we've got to deal with. And then, the ones we mentioned earlier, the number 10s like Nico Paz and things like that, there's no guarantee that he comes in and the Prem is right for him. He's clearly a wonderful technician, a lovely footballer, but there's no guarantee that he walks in at his age after one really good season in Serie A, and he's coming in and he's going to do a job, and he'll cost a fortune as well. So it's really hard to say. I think if you want somebody just to make you feel better that you missed out on Eze, you go for a number 10. But I don't see an issue with us kind of rethinking that and going slightly more towards the Gibbs White end of things with a player like that could still be somebody who elevates our midfield and helps us progress the ball through the middle. So yeah, something like that. I've not got that one player, because for me, Eze was maybe that one player.
That's what I'm saying. It's almost like there's always players where you go, well, if we don't get him, you can kind of go. But for me, it's like there's a very clear, it's Eze, and there's a massive drop off, and there's no one that either like, for instance, Morgan Rogers, I just think is a deal that won't get done. It's far too much money. So there's no one that you kind of go, oh, if it's not him, we could get him and you can get away with it. Or I'm like, no, it's either here or so far that, or as you said, a complete pivot to let's go somewhere else. Let's go to a completely different direction here. So yeah, I do completely agree. I wouldn't be against Paqueta coming in. As I said, I like Paqueta. I think if he could come in as an 8, and then maybe whoever plays in the 10 is a little bit more. We're going to go into it in a minute because I think there's some news on Kulu that's come out in the last couple of hours. But Ash, I know that you like to do your analysis. You like to do your checkup on players. I think Hackney was one that you've mentioned before as well. Who would be a player that you think we should be looking at as an alternative to Eze?
Oh, there's no right or wrong answer here, because, like I said before, we've left it so late in the window. We're kind of snookered ourselves into this corner where we've left with the options that we have at the moment. Like loads of people think there's loads of 10s around. I disagree. That or of the level of you guys were saying in terms of like your Morgan Gibbs White and your Eze's. People have talking about El Canoes, but for me, El Canoes in the attacking third, he's non-existent in my opinion. Creativity wise, he can help. But in his first season, he didn't create a lot or a great deal of chances for his teammates. But I think with El Canoes, the difference with him, he takes the ball well from the defensive third into the middle third. And I think that's something we're lacking. And his first thought is, can I pass? How fast can I get this ball from A to B? Do you know what I mean? And having a playmaker that plays a little bit deeper, doing what Madison was doing, trying to get the game ticking. I'm not against that. But again, it's that player that's not proven. He's only had one season, and it was at a club at Leicester. No disrespect to Leicester. Obviously, they got relegated. I'm still not looking at that. But at the same time, when he was like in the team, Bonanotte, he was actually the 10, and he played further back. So it was like, even when you're on the number 10, you're not the 10. You know what I mean? So there are other players as well. Someone's put Kluivert in there. Kluivert is a 10, but he had a lot of penalties. Kluivert had a lot of penalties. Good player.
They've also sold so many players. Someone said this the other day about going to sign Kluivert, and I'm like, they've sold so many players. Why do they need to sell anymore? Like they've had to rebuild their whole defense.
Exactly. Like, if I was going to go back to Bournemouth, I would have gone for Semenyo. But let's go back to the question. A 10. If I'm being realistic, obviously there was news that broke out. It depends if you trust the source, but Kirsch broke a source of Al-Kalouche. We're looking at him. My issue with Alcalush is his physicality. Wonderful player, great technician, good on a half turn. That's what you want. Creative in the middle third as well, so he's able to distribute. And he's got really high. I think he was the second highest player for key passes, so just behind Cherky, who plays for Man City now. So a player like that who has the vision, has the awareness to find players whilst he's on the move as well, because he's able to dribble and then pass and then carry the ball and then execute a shot. His output numbers in terms of goal volume is not that high. He still needs to work for me on his end product in terms of finishing, but he does have a variety of shots, which I do like. He's got shots from outside the box, curlers, first time shots, back post finishes, finesse shots, like instep shots, lace finishes as well, power in the shot. So he's got a variety of shots I like about him. And even when he is dribbling, he likes little correctors. I can't even say the word, but he likes to top it from one foot onto the other really quickly. And he likes to do little Cruyff turns, little body feints. So he's quite tricky. But as I said before, he needs to create and learn to create separation. Even in the French league, that was his weakness, creating separation, holding the player off, using his body to do that. And as a number 10 in the Premier League, you need that physicality. And I think that's what Thomas Frank really wants. And that's why we're looking at the Brazilian kid from Man City in Savio. But I think there's another player that's out there who could do a job, but it's not really it's not on our radar. So I don't know if it's worth mentioning him, but it's a guy called Kevin.
Someone's had a bid rejected for him, haven't they?
Probably Fulham.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, I think it was Fulham.
I like the profile. I like the profile. I can play midfield, but he predominantly plays left wing. But he's got goals in him and he's got assists, and I think he's got more take-ons than Kudos. So having that take-on ability, he's very, very similar to a Savinho. Do you know what I mean? But we're cheaper, and then we could deploy the money for another number 10. Do you know what I mean? In a player like Lookman, even because Lookman can do the 10. Lookman can do the left wing. So I'm looking at players that could do multiple roles. And that way, if you pick up an injury, it doesn't hurt you so much because you've got a player that can play left wing, one player that can, and a player that can play attacking midfield, or you've got an attacking midfielder that can play right wing as well. And those players I just mentioned, you get that kind of a bit like what City do. They bring players in that can do more than one, fulfill more than one role on the pitch.
Beast has said, you've said there's not many 10s, Ash, and name 6. But that is the thing. Ash goes in a deep dive and looks at far different players than what's out there in the normal.
Also these are players that we're not linked with as well. So but
and as you said, they're also versatile. So they might not necessarily come up as a 10, but you know that they can kind of
exactly. But Lookman, to be fair, we have been linked with Lookman. I can't remember who reported it, but obviously Atalanta are holding out for more money. They don't want him to go to another Serie A club, and he has spoken to Premier League clubs, and Spurs apparently are one of them. So I wonder if,
isn't
it? So I mean, he's got output for the last 3 seasons in Serie A. Marlon would disagree with me and say how many players from Serie A come and do well in the Premier League. I would say Kulusevski might be one. He's done all right, maybe.
Yeah, I think Lookman, again, we go back to it. I know it wasn't a successful period, but he was in the Premier League. He was around the English game. He went away, and then you could just use Mo Salah and Kevin De Bruyne as arguments to say they weren't brilliant in their first time. They was pretty decent when they returned. So, again, you can use extremes on both sides. But talking about the versatile forwards at Spurs, there has been a report that's come out tonight that Kulusevski is expected to be out until the turn of the year.
February.
So again, we are sitting there as a fan base saying that Eze was a priority because we was lacking attacking midfielders because of Maddison's injury. I think the expectation within the fan base was that Kulusevski would be back probably in a month or two. And now we had the Eze news yesterday. Kulusevski's out for even longer and could have played in that 10.
Luke, they knew. Luke, they knew.
They must.
As JJ said, they plan. JJ said, the club of this size, they plan. So they would have known that. And that's the reason why we're so disappointed at
Well,
the
he
moment.
actually tweeted. I don't know whether I think this was after that news broke, but Kulusevski's put a picture up of him in the gym saying your favourite player will be back soon. So maybe that's a dig at, because it's not widespread, that reports. It's come from a couple of reliable people, but not many.
Yeah, he's
So
on the
it could
bike.
be.
He's on the what do you call it? The assault bike.
Yeah. So
He's looking quite lean, to be fair.
pardon?
He's looking quite lean as well.
Yeah, he does. He does. So some of the other stuff that's come out over the last like 24 hours, really, apparently, and it's not really linked to us, but it may free up and it may mean that clubs have to sell players. But Romano's just tweeted to say that there's big movements expected for Nico Jackson. He's definitely set to leave Chelsea. However, Newcastle, Bayern, and Aston Villa seem to want him. Obviously, talking about if they go big on him, Rodgers may come available. That would be one of the worst swap deals in the world of football if they go big on Jackson and then sell Rodgers. That would be incredible. But for Spurs, Tottenham have made inquiries into the Monaco winger you just mentioned, and also they reckon that Tyler Diblin, Paz, but Johan Wissa has also come up because. And again, this is where it all kind of becomes a big part of the puzzle. The rumours today are that Larson from Wolves has had a massive bid to go to Newcastle. Therefore, does that mean that Wissa does not go Newcastle? Does it then free up Wissa to come Spurs? So again, this is where, especially when you get to the end of the season, we're talking about clubs having to get players in to replace players.
But then that means Richarlison would have to leave then, no? Because
Does it mean that the left winger option's no longer an option and Richarlison's considered an option as a left winger? This is it. You've got so many different caveats to things.
I mean, he wants to be Brazil's number 9, no? So I'd assume that he'd want to start in that number 9 role in that position. He's fighting Solanke for that position. He started up front there as well. Frank likes him in the number 9, no? Or I could be reading into it too much.
Yeah, no, I think they're all. It's all. This is the problem: is that we don't really know the way Lange works.
Wait, how old is Wissa? Isn't Wissa the same age as Richarlison?
Yeah,
I thought he's the same age.
No, he's done 29. 30.
Where's it? Okay, let me check. I'll check as well. Yeah, carry on. Sorry.
Yeah, no. So that's that. Rodgers has obviously been mentioned. You mentioned Alex Scott as well. The one that really surprises me, and there might be reasons behind it, because City very rarely operate poorly in the window.
He's 28.
He's 29 soon.
No, but he's September, isn't it? Yeah, September.
It's just about turned 29, 40 million. But the one that really surprises me, because there has been, and someone's actually just put it in the chat, big up C4, all the stories of us looking for a left centre-back has gone dead. We seriously can't look at more than one player at a time now. But Akanji is apparently available for 15 million going to Galatasaray. Pardon?
I'm taking him.
I don't understand how that's not been an option for Spurs personally. I mean, if you've got a player, especially, and again, we are going to go into the tactics just next, because I do want to get your guys' views on how we might go against City. But Frank has been very much deploying a back four with an inverted sort of fullback who kind of covers the centre-back role. So we kind of go to 3 centre-backs. Akanji's played wide right, wide left for City, done exactly that job. He would be perfect in a 3. He's quick enough. He's Premier League proven. 15 million. I think the only thing that doesn't make sense is the wages. He's on about 180 grand a week. But we at some point have to start going, this player's available. He's very, very good. We should be signing him. What would be your thoughts if Akanji was the guy to come in, Chris?
I don't think there's any guarantee of him starting regularly, unless they're going to rotate him with Van der Ven and maybe try and save him. So maybe that's one of the reasons why. But then again, if he's 15 million to Galatasaray, we'd probably end up having to pay 20 or 25 for him. It's still a good deal.
That's what I'm saying. There's some of the
I don't know
reports
why we wouldn't just put in. That will give you 22 million, and then you've not spent big on a backup left centre back. But then wages come into it. I don't know what he's on at City, but he's probably on a nice chunk. He might want
180 apparently. He's on 180 grand a week.
There you go.
And
Romero's our captain. He's just
old.
become our highest paid player. I think he's on 200 grand a week, Romero now. So
Yeah, but if we're a serious club, that's what we've got to start paying them wages, though, JJ. We've not got to start paying near that if we want to become a proper club,
100%.
Champions League.
Yeah. You got to pay it, and I don't think it's a problem to pay it. If the fee is 15 to 20 million for a Kanji, get it done. If his wages are 180, get it done. Polina, because he's coming on loan, he's having his full salary paid, and he might be on 200 plus. Just because Bayern's wage structure is way bigger than ours, and so yeah, I don't see an issue whatsoever. Eventually, that 200k line at Tottenham's got to move, just based on inflation, let alone us trying to compete and bring in bigger and better players. If it's a move that the player is interested, the only reason I don't, apart from the fact that Man City hate doing business with Tottenham, it's the player himself. I think he'll get minutes. I think Van der Ven needs rest. He's not going to play in all 4 competitions. He's not going to play 2-3 games a week. But does Akanji believe that he's going to get the minutes? Whereas if he goes to Gala, he's number one. He's first choice. He's first name on the team sheet. So yeah, it's maybe for me the thing that stops it is the player side, which again you got to factor in. It's all very well us saying go get it done, but the player's like, yeah, I'm okay, thanks.
Yeah, no, of course. We are going to move on now. That's transfers out of the way. We are going to move on to the upcoming game against Manchester City. Could be one of the reasons why Savinho deal stalled. Let's all, just as Spurs fans, just hope that's the case, because we've not got much more to hang on to at this moment in time. I'm just going to come to the chat because, guys, we've got 29 likes. We need to have at least 50. We need 50 likes. So come on, guys, make sure you're liking the video. We need 21 more likes. And also, if you haven't subscribed already, please make sure you're subscribing. We need 4 more to reach 1,310. I've also put the links for everyone in the chat. JJ has his own YouTube account. Ash is also part of Spurs Kings. Make sure you go in and sub in to both of them as well. Chris has X, but he's never on it, so I'm not going to promote that X anymore.
Life's too busy at the minute to be on X, to be fair. I just see the Tottenham updates, and that's all I manage at the minute.
Mate, all it is the same on YouTube. It's just meltdown after meltdown after meltdown. So obviously, the last few games that we've played, we've obviously had PSG. We went to a back 5, kind of come out of nowhere. Hadn't played it all summer. All of a sudden, we're playing with a back 5. Obviously, against Burnley, we adopted a quite youthful, young midfield. I don't think many people were expecting that amount of changes. And if we wasn't maybe expecting that midfield with Bergvall, Sarr and Gray. What are the thoughts and feelings around, Ash, I know you've got to shoot soon. We'll start with you. What do you think? Are we going to see more of a PSG formation style? Or are we going to kind of sit back? What are your thoughts on what we're going to see? And it's very small pools, so very difficult to work out, but interested to know what you think.
You know what? Jamie Carragher said straight away, he's expecting us to do the PSG formation against Man City, and that's the way we're going to set up against the bigger teams. Mm-hmm. How we might at times sit off in the mid block, but at times be aggressive in the press and try to win the ball back high, win those second balls, and generally have a 5-3-2, or with the wing backs pushing on. I don't know if you want to look at it like that, but yeah, basically having no 10, you're basically using Sarr as the legs, and you've got you've got Bentancur and you've got Paulinho. They're more or less like the base. They're the ones that sit and protect in front of the back 3. But having the back 3 allows the other 2 centre backs to split, and then there's one in the middle, being Romero, and Romero sometimes acts as the actual defensive midfielder, which allows Bentancur to push slightly high up. Acts into more of an 8 and more of an attacking 8. And with the wing backs, and you got the front 2, the wing backs obviously bomb when they can, and they support and get crosses into the front 2. And I thought it was interesting how we used Richarlison as the top man, and then obviously just off of that, Kudos was playing in that. But it's like, I think fans enjoyed slightly more the 4-3-3 we played or the 4-2-3-1, if you want to call it that, against Burnley, because we were more on the front foot and we were more assertive, more dominant, and that's what fans want to see, even against the bigger teams. And I remember for a good part of the season, for majority of the season, Thomas Frank set up that way at Brentford, especially against Man City. When I last watched it, I remember they were playing a back four. They didn't go to back three. They were really transitional still. Hit City on the counter, but again, they were aggressive. They wanted to press. The times they went direct and long, and there was times when they did build up meticulously from the back. What I did notice though was the relationship for me on the left hand side in that first half. I felt the balance was slightly off between Jed Spence, who's obviously right-footed, who wants to come inside a lot, and then you've got obviously ahead of him Brennan Johnson. But equally, I felt that, and I'm not pinning it on Brennan Johnson, by the way, by not getting involved or coming short and, you know, making an angle for him because it's on his right foot. I felt like
JJ will have something to say about that if you do, I'm sure.
Yeah. He's making mental notes right now. Don't worry, I see his eyes.
The Johnson defender.
No, for me, it was more Bergvall that surprised me, because there was times when I felt Spence played a clip ball into the channel, and you want your left-sided midfielder or your 10 or whatever you want to call it, you want them to sometimes pull wide to add support or attack.
Madison's very good at that. Madison's very good at
exactly. And I felt that because they haven't had that relationship, they didn't have that kind of understanding. And sometimes Bergvall, for me, he stuttered. And there was balls that Spence played, and he was like, his arms like, oh, bruv, you should have been there. Like, why weren't you not there? And so I don't know if they're looking at that, or if they're going to show the video to them as well, if they're going to experiment. But I still imagine it would be a 3 at the back or a 5 at the back. And
just before we go to JJ, what I was thinking is in regards to Savinho, because I thought exactly the same thing with Jed Spence. I think Jed Spence defensively is the best fullback at the club, and I think there's absolutely no way Doggy comes straight back in. I think Spence has to play. He would start at left back for me. However, it reduces your width so much when he's constantly coming infield, if he does come in, if he does go forward. And then obviously you do have, and as you said, it's nothing to do with Johnson as the player. Odobert will be the same. I think Odobert offers the best width out of everyone, but again, he's one that comes in infield. Savinho ain't going to do that. Savinho is going to stay wide, and he's going to stay. So what you're doing is, if you're constantly coming infield, you're essentially again pushing it all to Kudus. He's easier to mark because everything's leading to him. Whereas Savinho is it all? I know at the moment it seems to be you play your fullbacks wide and then you're inverted forward. So we almost going to do it the other way around, where the fullback is the one that inverts, and actually Savinho is the one that stays wide.
Yeah, it's for me as well. It's like when you've got a left footer playing the out ball, it's going to come out a little bit quicker because they're not going to have to take a touch then to get onto their right foot. They could hit it first time into the channel, and that could speed up the attack. And obviously with a left foot, as you said, they can go on the outside and then they can supply crosses in directly. Equally with a Doggy, he can go down the outside and either do the cutbacks, because he doesn't really cross the Doggy. That's the thing. He does like that pocket in that channel where he does invert a bit and he does run down. He's got a good power and good acceleration on the ball, and he likes to drift in field. But at the same time, when the ball's played out to him, he's able to receive it on his left, use the right foot as his back foot, and then first time he can get that ball out of his feet and hit that pass down that channel. But yeah, I mean, looking at City, just quickly on the flip side, maybe JJ, I won't go too much into it because JJ will touch on this, but I felt when I watched City, they pretty much had a back two pairing, and they were very aggressive, where they had Rico Lewis inverting a lot. And when Wolves were breaking on them, they were going down their right hand side quite a lot, and there wasn't a lot of protection for me on that right hand side, and Wolves were getting a lot of joy by going direct and through those lines. I think when Rico Lewis inverts and they have the ball, I think there's an opportunity that when we get the ball, we can hurt them and literally do a transitional ball to whoever it is, whether it's a Johnson, whether it's a Tell. They need to be that person that's really good at running off the ball. And I do agree with you, Odobert is more ball to feet first. He's a ball to feet kind of
Yeah,
guy. He's not really a running behind type of guy. And I noticed when Kudus is on the ball, sometimes when you've got like an Odegaard and a Richarlison, there's not much movement in behind, in my opinion. And I think that needs to be balanced at times. So, you know, you can look at either way. Like, you got that threat with Odegaard because he's a better dribbler. He can carry it. He's got, he looks after the ball a bit more, so it helps the team to get up the pitch. But then with Brennan Johnson, you've got that goal threat all the time. But I don't want to steal JJ's thunder. I know he's going to talk about
we have got a question in the chat that says, where are we? Surely Brennan Johnson has to be a super sub this season. So we'll come to you in a second, JJ. Ash, I know you need to shoot off now, so appreciate you coming on. I've just put the link in the chat for Spurs Kings. If you haven't already, please make sure just hit 4K. Is it 4K we just hit?
Yeah, just about. Yeah.
Superb work, mate. Superb work. Great seeing you. Thank you again for coming on, man. And hopefully I'll see you again soon.
Yeah, man. Big up, man. And hopefully you guys get there soon as well, man. 4K for both of these lovely channels. Wonderful people. And I need to get them on my show ASAP. But yeah, peace and love, people.
Cheers,
love. Up the Spurs, man.
Up the Spurs. JJ, we'll come to you. Obviously, you can start with Brennan Johnson if you want. You've become every time I think of any negative slander towards Johnson, I do think of you. So what are your thoughts on the kind of system that you expect us to play? Are we expecting a PSG sort of performance? Are we expecting it to be more like Burnley? What are your thoughts with it?
Yeah, I'm not going to lead off with Brennan Johnson chat. I think I'll leave that there. It's what I'm expecting to see. There's a couple of reasons. I think we'll go with the 3 or the 5, whichever way around you want to put it, just because one of my main thoughts on it is that we're not there yet in terms of, and I said this a few times, it doesn't feel like Frank has managed to layer on the attacking elements of our game yet. We don't look comfortable possessing the ball, playing it through the phases. We're personnel short, right? And we've not got creative elements in the midfield. So yeah, my feeling is that due to that, and in large part because of that, we will stick with the 3 at the back against Man City. Also, looking at how Man City played in that first game, they deployed a very aggressive 4-3-3. But again, inverted fullbacks, pushing people very high, lots of rotations in that middle. You know, all of these kind of things lead to, if Thomas Frank wants to execute the game plan similar to the one that he had against PSG, he's going to want a very high press when the time is right. So if we find ourselves at the end of one of our attacks or one of our positional situations that we're high up the pitch, he's going to want us going into a really aggressive high press. So he's going to want us to have the additional, player picking up a player in the middle, which could be one of the centre halves stepping up and into midfield, allowing one of the double pivots to move forward. And then you've also got a situation where you can go man for man on them when they want to play the ball out. So if they're going to throw players forward, we're going to go into an aggressive high press. If they beat that first line of the press, we're going to retreat very, very quickly into a mid-low block. And then we're going to really kind of be compact, and we're going to try and send them around the outside rather than allowing their rotations in those fullback areas. So that's why I think he'll go with the 5 or the 3. One of the things that he did that was quite nice against PSG is he tilted the team. So he gave Jed Spence a little bit more license to go a bit higher, and he kept Porro a little bit further back, which effectively turned the 5 or the 3 at the back into a 4. It turned it into a more orthodox 4. So having your 3 centre halves move across one side and then bringing Porro in, or just sitting Porro in that inverted position just ahead of them, where he can also be very effective if we get the ball. So he can be used to play the ball forward if they try and cut down on Romero's passing lanes. We know that Danso hasn't really got that in locker. We know that that's not Mickey van der Ven's game. So Man City are going to come, they're going to sit on that, they're going to try and cut off that avenue. So you give Porro that opportunity to also be in there as a bit of a playmaker. And then if we do advance up the pitch, Thomas Frank loves crosses in the box. He wants balls going into the box. You let Porro be in there to do that. And then obviously all the things that we've seen. So Kudus trying to secure the football. I think we'll play the ball long all the time. Lots of long clearances from Vicario, lots of long clearances from the centre halves. Again, that speaks more to what we did against PSG than what we did against Burnley, and that's absolutely fine. You know, completely different tactical setups. And so that's my expectation. I think that's the way he'll play it. I do wonder if he'll do anything interesting in the midfield and the forward line. I can definitely see Paulinho Bentancur being the first choice too. Sarr's running power in the absence of having a 10 again probably picks itself, right? And then who does he use in the 2? So he's you know, he's going to move the team around. We're going to play with a single striker and then try and get someone alongside him. He did that a lot against Brentford. Is it Kudus coming in? Is it someone like Brennan Johnson, who, you know, he's absolutely lethal when he gets into attacking positions in and around the penalty area? Yeah, I think we've got options. We've shown in the past, barring one fantastic performance under Ange, where we battered Man City and we were very front foot. We've always been quite good against Man City because we sit low and we had great transitional options, and, you know, we hit them hard and fast, and we got high quality players for doing that. It's almost like you've got a very high quality team playing a, you know, bottom half of the Prem style transitional game against a better team. So, you know, we just got the quality of player to execute. I still think we've got some of that in our team. Maybe not quite as much pace as we had in the past with players like Son, but yeah, if we can secure the ball with Richarlison or Solanke, if we can secure the ball with Kudus to help alleviate pressure and bring us up the pitch, I think we're still going to look to exploit the areas around their fullbacks.
I'm really glad you spoke about Porro there and how we can adapt into the different sort of tactics that Frank's had. I've been saying for a couple of weeks now that I actually think Porro could become one of the main sort of players in this team in terms of, from a tactical point of view, his ball playing ability and his cross field passes, particularly if we was to pick a Savinho. I go back to, I think Anthony Gordon would be the perfect player on that left hand side if you have Porro with his ability to be able to clip the ball over the top. We see it from Maddison in the semi-final when he won the penalty. That's all. But also that he can also do that, but he can also do that as a high wide fullback in terms of his crossing ability. So it's almost like Frank adopts, as I said previously, he adopts two fullbacks. One of them is your guy that goes long, as you said, Jed Spence on one occasion, but then he also has one that operates a bit more centrally, comes inside a little bit more. And I think with Porro's ability to be able to play the ball long on both of them occasions, I feel like he could be a real key aspect in this team. And that's why when I've seen some people have a debate about whether Spence should potentially play right back, I'm thinking Porro's passing ability, especially when there was no Maddison, was so pivotal for this team. And I feel like under Frank, that's actually going to be, it's going to be increased the amount of creativity that's going to be pushed alongside him, but also the tactics are going to allow him to get into positions where he can really impact. I mean, his assists I think he had better assist rate than Trent during the period he's been in the league. So I take it from what you're saying, you're kind of in agreement with that.
Yeah, definitely.
Chris, what do you think in terms of the Man City? I think we all kind of agree, and I did have a feeling this would be the case, particularly in the first year when Frank's still putting together his team. Maybe afterwards, if we get the right quality in, then maybe he won't go to the back five as often. However, the expectation from all of us is that we'll go to 5 at the back, similar to the PSG sort of game. Is that your expectation as well?
Yeah, I think that'll be the case. I think utilising Danso as well with the long throws, that seemed to be a good tactic. City seem to be they've got quite a big squad, I'd say, in terms of height against us. Obviously, Kudus ain't the biggest. I mean, if Bergvall sits in a 10 or Sarr maybe, if they fill in, then but he's probably going to be looking for Richarlison or Solanke, whoever's there, and it might give us an attacking threat for winning. At least if we win throw-ins, corners, it might be an outlet for us. But yeah, I expect to see the same as what we see at PSG. And then maybe, depend on how the games are going, I just hope if we do go a goal up, we don't sit back like we done in the PSG game and invite the pressure on, because I think, again, playing against these sort of teams, we're going to concede if we do that. We need to keep on the front foot and play the game and not just go, there's 10 minutes left, let's just sit back and try and see this out now.
Yeah, but do you think, like, I completely agree with that sort of overview against PSG. You're playing against a quality level of opposition, but also the players that were coming off the bench were trying to get fit, weren't fit enough, probably couldn't carry out. I mean, Kudus and Richarlison on the day were superb. And then if they would have been able to play for 90 minutes, then potentially we don't have to go so defensive. It just felt to me that as soon as the ball came up, it was just coming back. So obviously, if you've got Solanke a bit fitter, Johnson, Tell, everyone should be a bit fitter because we're further down the line. Do you think that could be a good outlet in terms of holding the ball in that final third in a better way, therefore not inviting pressure so much?
Yeah, of course. I just think, and again, it's no disrespect to the players in the pitch, but I think if you are bringing on an Archie Gray to be a centre midfielder against your Man City and your bigger squads, because we don't have someone else, I don't know if it's always going to work. It's not because it's Archie Gray's fault. I say it could be any centre midfielder that he brings on, but I just don't feel like we've got the resources when we're playing that formation to just bring on, again, City have got the subs, they can just keep bringing on quality after quality. If you've got someone who's 80% fit, who have got 15 minutes to just come on and just go for it, they're going to give it to everyone. You're going to get something out of them. So, yeah, I don't think it'd surprise anyone if we did go with the same sort of setup as PSG. It might surprise us all and just stick with what we've done at Burnley and just tweak the game plan as such.
Yeah, I completely agree. Guys, we've got 38 likes in the stream. Come on, let's get 12 more. Let's get to 50. We are going to wrap up shortly. I want to know what your score predictions are for the City game. We are going to ask the guys here as well what the score is going to be. We're obviously going to win because we have some positivity and we need to make sure we've got positivity going into this game. But I'm not trying to influence their decisions or anything like that. So, yeah, guys, massive thank you for everyone that's been in the stream today. Really appreciate it. Obviously the whole Eze situation has put a dampener a little bit on the transfer window, but it is over to Spurs now. It would be a massive victory if we were able to get over the line against City. Then we've got Bournemouth, I believe, and then it's the end of the transfer window and on to a brilliant, perfectly timed international break, because we haven't had football for such a long period of time. We're now going to be without it again, which is brilliant. It means we'll all be doing the looking at the scores from the Championship and everything else, because England is when it used to have so many Spurs players in, I was really interested, and now I just I'm not really that bothered. But anyway, we Man City. Let's see. We've got a few score predictions in the chat. Big up Dan. Gray touched the ball one time. He's not good enough. That was obviously a debate raging on from the Europa League. From the Super Cup. Is Udogie fit to play? I don't think he is, from what I've seen. Frank will have a press conference tomorrow, I believe, and we'll probably hear some team news then. Maybe interesting. He might confirm a little bit more on for Kulu and see what that is. But Chris, what are your score predictions? And if we are going to score, who's going to be the man to score against City?
I think Richarlison scores, and I think we get beat 2-1.
Good positive vibes. Excellent. That's exactly what we need after Eze, mate. Appreciate that one. But honesty. I like the honesty. It's good. So we're going to lose 4-1. So there you go. Let's not be too positive. Cheers. Appreciate that, mate. Go on, JJ. What are your expectations?
Mate, when it comes to score predictions, it's put in a random number generator, and that's the score I'm going with. But yeah, just expectations is go there, don't get played off the park, give a good account of ourselves. We're nowhere near it in terms of like finalising our squad and being ready. Man City do look like they're coming out of the traps this season. I really like the look of Reinders, the new lad in midfield. So yeah, just go give a good account of ourselves. And I think if we are going to get a positive result, without no idea, it could be 1-0, it could be 4-0. If we are going to get a positive result, we're going to have to ride our luck. Loads and loads of like low block, last ditch defending and throwing ourselves at stuff. And then it just feels to me like we go back to the old model of how we got results, which is hit him in those fullback areas. Please play Rico Lewis and let Kudus have a go at him, because I think we'll get change out of him there. And yeah, Kudus to square one, and Brennan Johnson score the winner.
There we go. I knew we'd get Brennan Johnson in. But going on to that, I've been saying this for quite a while, and obviously Brennan Johnson has been a little bit of he's had a little bit of negative press within the fan base for a little while now. But I've been saying that if Brennan Johnson's starting for a Champions League club, that's an argument there to say we need to improve on that. But if you've now got a Brennan Johnson coming off the bench in the last 10, 15 minutes of a game that you need a goal, there is that he's got that in him to be able to do that. And this whole thing that he can only tap the ball in from 5 yards drives me absolutely crazy, because if that was all it was, then every player would be doing it. And there's a reason that they don't all do it, and it's because it's not as easy as just tapping the ball in from 5 yards. So I think it's a great. And then soon as you've mentioned it, who's popped up in the chat? But too much of E. Man like JJ talking about Brennan Johnson. Big up E. How you doing, my friend? Hope you're doing well, mate. I like this one, Andrew. Romero and Van der Ven both to score. Now that would be absolutely superb. And I completely agree. I think I know that we're a bit of a bogey team for City, but I just think that we need to go there. And obviously, there was a big game against PSG, and Frank got some criticism unfairly, I believe, from some of the fan base. But I feel like some of these games are exactly when Frank needs to almost make a statement in terms of how we play. So I don't think we can just sit back. I think we have to be able to break. But what I was going to say to both of you, do you think that, and he obviously isn't going to be available, but if we got Savinho over the line, isn't he almost a fantastic counter-attacking player? Like in this sort of, if you was playing City and you had Savinho in your lineup, he's the sort of player that you want to be giving the ball to on a quick break, because he can beat men, he's dangerous, he's direct. Do you think that we are more likely to see a more defensive setup and a quicker counter-attack, JJ? Do you think that's the way that Frank's going to go, or do you think he's going to completely adapt every game and it'll all be different tactics?
I think if you're going to get behind a manager like Thomas Frank, you are accepting that he has got a slightly different plan and a slightly different tweak for, every team and every situation, every scenario, competitions, home, away, all that kind of stuff. So if you're going to get behind it, you get behind what he's trying to do, and you accept that against PSG, you're going to play one way. Against Man City, you might play a certain way and be slightly more defensive, or play more players at the back and try and play more counter-attacking, use the percentages, which is what he's doing anyway. Throw-ins and set pieces we've been really good at. He's added that to our game more than we were doing previously. So you get on board with it, and you accept that kind of stuff, and it's not a negative. You don't see it as a negative. It's this manager and how he does things. Or if you want Tottenham to be the Tadaris to do, he goes with his 4-2-3-1, his 4-3-3, and he puts Bentancur and Palhinha instead of Gray and Berrival, and he goes with better players in that system. But I think that's a risk. I'm not sure he'll do it. I think we get on board. He's going to be front-footed in our defending as well. It's not just low block, sit at the back and pack the area. He's going to try and punch City in the mouth. He's going to try and get there, nick balls high up. They will commit players forward. They will leave gaps, and if we can win the ball, we'll get chances and we might score a goal from it. So I think he'll do it, and you just accept that. So defending is not just about standing at the back. Defending is also how you play with the football, and defending is also how you get in the other team's face and try and force them into errors and win the ball high up. So I think he'll do that.
Yeah, I completely agree, and also let's be real again. Even this performance that we see, and I've said that we may see certain tactics against the top teams, and we might see different ones against teams that are lower down. But we can't even judge him necessarily on the City performance, regardless of what it is, because we as fans all think that he's missing in certain places. So obviously, as a position, the 10, obviously we're thinking about Savinho. So if he had them both available, then maybe the formation, the way that he would play against City on the weekend, may be different to what he currently has, because he doesn't have them players available. So I don't think we can be too harsh, regardless of what happens, whether it's positive or negative. I don't want it to be a case of like we get to the PSG game where there was 80 minutes of real positivity and fantastic management of the game, fantastic tactics, but then there was 10 minutes where you could argue he may have made some mistakes, but you could also argue it was a quality. You could argue that it was pre-season. There's so many different aspects, and there's a lot of the fan base that really focused on that. I think we need to get to the end of the transfer window. It needs to be backed, and we certainly need to be just a little bit more patient than we've been, because we know what Spurs are like. We don't do things easily. Hence the Eze, hence the Morgan Gibbs White, and we've got so many other examples. Guys, we're going to wrap it up there. That has been a real good one. I really appreciate it. It's always great having JJ on. Ash, obviously, really analytical as well, looking at different stats, looking at the tactical side of things. So be really interesting to see. For me, Pep Guardiola is one of the best managers ever. The footballing mind is incredible. So I always find it enjoyable watching his team. Hopefully he doesn't win this weekend, but it'll be interesting to see Frank versus Pep. And see if we can come out on top. Guys, have a great rest of your evening, depending on where you are. Thank you very much. Make sure you are subbing to JJ's channel and obviously to Spurs Kings as well. Links are in the description. Thank you very much. And as always, the last thing from me, come on, you Spurs. See you later, guys. Thank you.